Hi, I'm Cliff Omart, and I'm a writer for Wines and Vines magazine. I've been writing their Vineyard Views column for about 12 years now. And I'm also Vice President of Professional Services at a company called SureHarvest. And we sell farm data management software, but we also do professional services work around all the sustainability issues on and off the farm. We work with growers, trade associations, grow groups, things like that. What I want to talk about this morning is what I see developing not only in wine grapes and wineries, but in agriculture, is the move toward what I call performance measures. We've all been devoted to implementing sustainability in vineyards. And so, for example, this morning we're here at Marcus and Liz Bokish's vineyard at their house. They manage about 1,200 acres of grapes in Lodi, but they also have a small label, Bokish, and they produce really nice wines from the vineyards that we're standing in right now, a very small case production. And Marcus and Liz are very devoted to sustainability, as are a lot of growers, not only in Lodi, but around California. When you do a lot of work in sustainability, you always wonder, am I accomplishing my goals? And in the past, we've been focused on what practices do we do. So for example, this vineyard has underground dip irrigation, which is very efficient, has cover crops. They monitor their vineyards regularly. They use integrated pest management techniques to control their pests. And the assumption is all of these practices are accomplishing the goals that we want to achieve. And I think many of us, the goals would be clean water, clean air, a healthy workforce, healthy soils, healthy vines. But we don't really measure that directly, and so performance metrics is a way of getting at that. Now, all of you, I believe, or most of you have heard the term carbon footprint. That is a form of performance measure. Basically, it's the amount of carbon dioxide that's produced to produce whatever you're trying to produce, and in this case, it's grapes. But I'd like to use an analogy of water. It's a little easier to grasp. Carbon footprint is a very complex topic. So with water, we obviously want to use just the right amount of water to produce the grapes that produce the great wine that we would all like to drink. And so if you look at practices in terms of irrigation, it's things like the proper system, which in this case would be drip irrigation. We want to make sure it's performing to the optimum, so we make sure that it's producing just the amount of water we want in all different parts of the vineyard. There's ways to measure that. We can look at our pumps and make sure they're working efficiently, that kind of thing. Looking at that in terms of performance, what we really are after is putting on the minimum amount of water it takes to produce the grapes that we desire. So this would be measuring the amount of gallons of water that it takes to produce a ton of grapes. And to do that, you would want to be measuring the flow from the pump and how much grape water the grapes demand. And you can do this through weather station information, so that if the grapes need, say, 5 gallons of water, you deliver 5 gallons and at the right time. And so this would be a way of measuring the performance. And you would also, in some years, it's going to vary because you have more rainfall. There's lots of things to contribute to water that comes to the vine. So every year you've got rainfall, so you're going to have water from the soil. So that's another reason why you're going to be irrigating differently in different years. And this is where the performance comes in again. How much water am I using? Am I delivering the amount of water the grapes really need? You don't want to overwater, but you don't want to underwater as well. So a great way to think about how performance measures can influence what you do is to use the analogy of the miles per gallon gauge in a Prius. Many of you have probably been in a Prius, and you know that that miles per gallon is a real-time gauge. So when you push on the gas pedal, your miles per gallon goes way up if you really are hard on the pedal. When you let off, it goes way down. And what that gauge does, you may or may not know that, but it alters your driving pattern. What you tend to do is you take your foot off the gas more, and you are using less miles per gallon in your vehicle, so you're burning less fuel. So your sustainability performance is going up. It's the same idea with water use in the vineyard. We can also look at energy use. For example, you burn diesel in your equipment. You use electricity in your irrigation pumps. So what you want to be doing is seeing how much diesel you're burning, how much electricity you're using, and literally calculating the British thermal units, or BTUs, which is the energy measure per ton of grapes produced. And then you track that over time, and it's a real-time gauge in that you can see from year to year. And what is going to happen by looking at it that way, you're going to alter your practices most likely to optimize the amount of electricity and diesel you use. The same goes for CO2 production. That's even more complicated because you have to use mathematical formulas to calculate it. But I think many of you have heard people talk about my carbon footprint in the vineyard, in the winery. I've even heard and read about people worrying about carbon footprint and how much carbon footprint am I reducing by riding my bicycle to work, that kind of thing. So carbon footprint is very much a performance measure as well. And again, going back to sustainability and why it is so important to all of us, growing wine grapes, making wine leaves an environmental footprint, and we want to minimize that. I have a book called Practical Guide to Sustainable Wine Grape Growing, and I go into great detail in the book about all different aspects of wine grape growing and how you can reduce your environmental impact, both in water use, energy use. It goes into human resources. How do we treat our workforce? How do we treat ourselves? Because that's all part of sustainability.